It is the 70th edition of the most iconic Grand Prix on the calendar, Monaco. All the hopes of the Principality rest on the shoulders of the only Monégasque, Charles Leclerc.
J'ai pris Ice Tea, Coca et Oasis. Je pense que ça ira pour tout le monde. Rapide mais efficace. Et bonjour.
Ça va? Tout va bien?
Oui, ça va et toi?
Ça fait 11,57.
Par carte, s'il vous plaît. Stop, ça passe pas. Solde insuffisant. Dans la bande-annonce de Netflix. Non. Ça les gars?
Très bien.
Champagne pour la victoire, hein. Oui.
J'ai du jus aussi.
Ça, c'est du jamais vu, ça.
Voilà.
Everything I do in my life, it's all for one thing, to become a world champion. I wake up in the morning and I think about this, I go to sleep the evening and I think about this. But other than that, there's my home race, Monaco.
Et je le sens bien pour ce week-end. T'imagines si tu gagnes à Monaco?
Ah, ce serait un truc de malade. Ah, pour moi, c'est un rêve d'enfant, depuis toujours.
Un Monégasque qui gagne la course à Monaco. Non mais sans déconner.
Ouais, faut que tu gagnes quoi.
Si tu gagnes, c'est jour férié à Monaco. Ouais.
Et maintenant, on va voir. Tu vas nous faire pleurer, hein? Je pense pas. Peut-être.
If this is the year, then I've got to take the opportunity. But obviously, considering what happened in the past, then it's quite difficult. Let's say that in the past, Monaco haven't been that successful for me.
We are retiring the car.
I really don't believe in bad luck or curse. But even though I don't believe in it, I hate hearing it.
So at the moment you have P1. Box now, box. Stay out, stay out. What are you doing?
He's now lost the lead of the Grand Prix.
No words, no words. Even if there's no curse, it's a lot of pressure. You ask yourself questions. What can I improve?
and it might look like it's impossible, but I need to make this dream come true.
You could have any. Which one would you have?
Imagine the money in that marina.
Someone was telling me it's 70k a day to dock it. Parking. It's like a parking ticket.
No wonder why Monaco is doing okay. They don't need taxes.
Don't need tax.
If you close your eyes and you think of Formula One, you imagine Monaco.
The Monaco Grand Prix is the most prestigious Formula One race in the world.
Anybody who's anyone wants to be there.
It's supercars, supermodels, super yachts. It's the Formula One lifestyle.
The glamour, the history, I don't think there's a Grand Prix driver that hasn't dreamt about winning there.
You're racing against the backdrop of the Grimaldi Palace and its storied family. It's the jewel in Formula One's crown.
And then you have racing cars hurtling around at 200 miles an hour.
The track is so narrow. You have the feeling of speed, danger, fear.
Monaco is a circuit like no others, you know, you are properly in the street.
You're going out for corners, you're brushing right up to the walls.
It's very risky.
La moindre erreur dans le week-end est souvent fatale, ce qui n'est pas vrai ailleurs.
If you just slightly over the edge, then you destroy the car and that's it.
Allez. Around that track, I have memories of my childhood absolutely everywhere in Monaco. Merci. Ciao. I could hear the sound of the engines while I was going to school, and I just didn't listen anything. I just wanted to go and see the Formula One cars driving around. I was obviously dreaming to be part of that race one day.
The pressure on Charles every year grows heavier. The weight of expectation becomes a burden. I can't imagine what that pressure feels like.
Monaco is special. Being at home makes it extra special.
True Monegasque as well.
Exactly.
What's your favorite sector of the Monaco Grand Prix?
La piscine. I think so. You know there is a swimming pool where I learned how to swim when I was a kid. So it's a special place.
Just 1 minute, someone's fainted, so we're just holding the interview.
Yeah.
Ferrari came on them.
That's how we measure popularity these days, yeah. It's not clapping, not booing, it's fainting. Fuck it, yeah.
I know there's a lot of fans that want to cheer for you.
To represent Ferrari, to have been on pole position and had that dream torn away from you. For Charles, is there a curse in Monaco?
It does seem like he's got the Monaco curse, Charles. He's just been so unlucky.
Yeah, considering he's like Monegasque royalty, he's not had a good run at Monaco in the past.
He's not cursed. Charles is not cursed in Monaco. Just very unfortunate.
If he wants, though, I can always take him to a Thai temple and get a blessing. I know a good monk.
He's had a pretty rough time of it. And that's what's in his head.
Leclerc's Ferrari has been retired with gearbox issues before the race even begins.
Mais c'est qui? Bonjour, la crapouille. Bonjour, toi, la crapouille. Bon, on coupe tes cheveux?
Allez, on coupe tes cheveux.
Ouais,
Pas trop court, maman. Laisse quand même de la longueur, mais...
Ouais, mais j'enlève le petit bourrelet là que tu as.
To win Monaco means so much for my whole family. My father was so passionate about racing. For us, the holidays were going to the karting track.
Un jour, mon père m'a amené au karting et ça m'a tout de suite pris et j'étais super content.
Il faut rester très modeste et on est que dans la 3e catégorie de karting.
My father was super supportive. Whenever he was seeing something that I wasn't doing right, he was very honest with me in a very loving way. And that was super important, to always be honest. Unfortunately, he became unwell. We learned that he would not make it, that there was like 2-3 weeks maybe left. I was in Formula 2 at that time, and it's obviously the last step before Formula 1. It was very difficult for me to accept him leaving, not seeing me and him realize that dream.
C'est juste en dessous.
So one day I just lied and told him that I had signed a Formula 1 contract. And I remember how incredibly happy he was. However, very quickly I felt so bad for lying to him.
Je peux prendre cette petite serviette, elle est à qui?
Vas-y, vas-y.
Là, non, mais c'est pour toi. Tu peux en mettre de partout?
My mum was like, Charles, you shouldn't do that. And lie to dad like this.
Je pars. Mon amour.
I think about my father a lot.
No.
I just have to manage my state of mind.
It's Monaco Saturday, the most important qualifying session of the season.
Hey, how are you?
Donc c'est sûr que le week-end de Monaco est un week-end compliqué pour tout le monde et Charles est encore un peu plus exposé que les autres. Mon rôle là-dedans, c'est d'essayer de faire un petit peu le tri, d'essayer de le protéger. On essaye de le protéger au maximum. Non, c'est sûr que Charles, je le connais depuis certainement plus de 10 ans. Donc c'est sûr que ça crée des relations.
In Alfa Romeo, I remember him saying very often that I should be nicer with myself.
Now we are reunited in Ferrari.
Quali is probably the moment of the weekend where the tension is the highest.
Ready to check? Wait, you check from the garage?
Listen, qualifying is always important. Because the higher you start up, the higher your chances of actually getting a better finishing position. But nowhere is it more important than Monaco. The streets are too narrow. The opportunity to pass is too slim. You push that little bit too much, you're in the wall.
Okay, Pierre, we can push.
Touch the wall.
Okay.
That shows you no one is safe here.
I hit the wall. Box now, Nico, box now. Fucking hell.
Absolutely on the edge there.
I touched the front right. Box. Max, ready to go? Yeah. Okay, let's go. Push.
Fucking at the wall. And Verstappen's bailed out. He's done. He's not a contender.
Oh man, this car is slippery.
No one's got a clean run yet. It's anyone's game.
Lando speed is good. Push now. Okay, looks like you do have Norris as a threat. P7. Okay, Lando. P4.
Hold on a minute. Piastri coming through in the McLaren. Piastri's actually going quicker.
Oscar, you're currently P1. best lap time is by Piastri.
I realize Oscar is a bit faster than we first expected. That adds to the adrenaline. The best thing you can do in those moments is just do not react to this news and focus on the lap that you need to make perfect.
So let's warm up tires and brakes.
Okay.
Charles is someone, for sure, very talented and so, but over-motivated. The expectations of Charles are always very high. When it's going wrong, he blames himself very quickly.
And mode push, next lap.
Everything depends on this lap.
Charles, you can push now. Now go.
I need to focus and go flat out. Don't think about the walls or anything and take all the risks.
People I like, he better not throw everything in the bin.
So we finished P1, P2 is now Piastri.
The crowd are roaring in Monaco because Charles Leclerc has got there. The man from Monaco is on pole.
Bon, ça c'est fait. Maintenant, il n'y a plus qu'à. Voilà.
I felt so good.
Merci.
But in the past, yeah.
Bonsoir. Ah, oui, je vous ouvre. Super,
Merci.
Et ça fait 84 euros.
Aujourd'hui, on pouvait vraiment pas faire mieux. Mais c'est demain la journée qui compte. Et...
This year, I'm trying to create a bit of a bubble back in my own apartment. It just helps me switch off the feeling of pressure and relax.
Tout le monde prend beaucoup plus de risques.
Il faut qu'on finalise le tout là cette fois. Il n'y a plus qu'à.
Allez, viens. Permettez que prenne en photo?
Oui, bien sûr.
Ils viennent du Brésil, de Mexico.
As much as you want to disconnect a little bit, for me being my home race,
Thank you so much. No problems.
wherever we go, I can't hide anymore.
C'est mon fils de 5 ans qui fascine avec vous.
Oui.
On peut faire une photo? Ça nous va, merci.
Parfait.
So it is very difficult to calm myself down. And tonight, it's impossible.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Monaco Grand Prix. Today, our pole sitter dreams of a seminal victory. This is Charles Leclerc's date with destiny.
Here he is! Hello. What are you going to do to break Monegasque hearts and beat the home hero?
There's a lot of games that can be played around here.
For Leclerc, he has a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And he makes a lot of mistakes.
Bonjour. Ciao.
The whole country has a very big expectation. You just want to focus on what gives you the best chance to achieve.
Leclerc has looked very quick. I know that I've got my work cut out for me going up against him, but I know there's a bit of the Leclerc Monaco curse. I don't think he's finished many races around Monaco, so that's pretty high pressure stuff.
And you might be able to capitalise.
If there's a chance to win the race, then that sounds pretty good to me.
You plan something tonight?
I don't know. I'll have to think about it once the job is done. If it's not, then I'll just go to sleep at 9 and...
There's always little things that drivers slip in that don't seem like mind games. It's just they're going to slightly start to see doubt before you drive.
What's give us a heads up of your race strategy today? So we are you gonna just hold us all up, or are you gonna go? So we know, like, so I can choose the right tires. He's 18th and I'm 7th.
No, I don't know. No, I don't know. I mean, I know.
The pressure needs to be controlled because your competitors can use it against you. And it's whether you have the right people around you to make sure you're level-headed when you get in the car.
You can get carried away in a negative spiral. When I was younger, this was a little bit destructive in a way. But Fred is a very calm person, which in very difficult moments is a really big help.
C'est sûr qu'il y a un doute, tension, que voilà, qu'on se concentre sur nous-mêmes, qu'on ne change pas notre attitude, notre approche et qu'on fasse le travail nous.
The Monaco grid before a race is traumatic for a driver.
That's a relief when I get inside the car. This is the best feeling.
Radio check, Charles. Radio check, okay.
D'être P1 sur la grille, c'est une étape importante, mais ça n'a pas toujours marché. C'est que là, pour le coup, un bon départ lui donnerait tout dans les mains.
I wonder how Charles Leclerc slept last night. He's the only pole sitter here in the last 19 years that hasn't finished on the podium. I have to say, Piastri has looked decent.
Oscar, this is all between McLaren and Ferrari.
The start is so important. I just focus on the first corner.
Whoever's going to be leading out of turn 1 is going to have a massive advantage.
separate, guys.
Yeah.
Red flag. Is everybody okay? Everybody is fine. Come back to the pit lane and form a queue. Hey, get out the car, right? Yes.
Straight away, I'm thinking, I wish we didn't have another start. But then very quickly, you know you don't have the choice. Now what's next? What's going to happen for our race? What does that mean?
Connaissant l'historique de Charles à Monaco, forcément qu'il y a eu un petit moment de flottement.
Take off the helmet again. You feel the tension again. Try and just recenter myself is quite difficult.
C'est jamais facile ces moments-là dans une course parce que j'essaye justement qu'il reste concentré sur ce qu'il a fait, de voir s'il y a des choses qui n'ont pas été dans sa procédure de départ et qu'il reste lui en alerte.
You can fire up. And Oscar, last cars are foaming up now.
Looks like a good launch from Oscar Piastri. He's got nowhere to go though. Charles Leclerc maintains the lead once again.
Get out of the way.
Good job, keep it up. Okay, Leclerc picked up the pace a bit. How are the tyres? Yeah, they're fine.
Le drapeau rouge alors permet de changer les pneus. Mais qu'on doit faire toute la durée de la course avec un seul train de pneus.
We need to slow down a bit.
What's the scope of that?
Priority 1 is tyres, and then we go to the end.
We have to do 77 laps on those tires, and this is a crazy distance for this kind of tires.
So that makes me push in the slow speed, which I don't like.
You need to manage pace, and I cannot go faster than the pace the team is telling me. And at the same time, try and make sure that I had Oscar under control behind.
40 laps to go. Oscar Leclerc has been told to slow down. Oscar, maximum push.
Oscar Piastri is closing in on Charles Leclerc. That gap is now down to half a second.
30 laps to go.
For all teams, the tyres are starting to wear and lose grip.
Max is struggling with a bit of understeer.
Lando!
Oh, that was close.
Punch.
Pops.
Oscar Piastri just looks like he wants to have a go.
Just for your info, do you want to know the margin?
No, Charles, we're not interested.
You said all right.
No, we are not interested.
That's rude.
Sorry.
Nous, notre jeu, c'est d'essayer de le calmer, de le mettre dans les meilleures dispositions, de lui donner les informations qu'il faut, mais pas trop. De gérer comme ça pour qu'il reste dans une bonne zone, mais il n'y a aucune garantie.
This is a cat and mouse game we've got going on.
Oscar is trying to attack me in turn 8, right before the tunnel. I get out the tunnel. I just don't see as well. But I was starting to feel lots of emotions. That's the last thing you want when you are inside a racing car pushing for the limits.
5 laps to go.
What did you say? How do you understand? Say again. Speak slowly.
I think especially with everything that had happened in the past, all my life is all about trying to win on track. This is a real opportunity. I'm having flashbacks of my father and just how much it will mean for him.
Last lap.
Tell myself, Charles, you need to focus on the moment. Just bring it home.
Sono fiero di te.
Finally.
He's done it at last. No more talk of curses. No more talk of what might be.
Merci beaucoup. Souvent, motif dans la voiture là.
Nager, c'est un bien grand mot. On m'a plus comparé à un cachalot qu'à un nageur. Je suis pas souvent ému, mais j'étais un peu ému. Honnêtement, je trouve que c'est quelque chose d'exceptionnel. S'il y a quelqu'un qui peut être fier de lui, c'est lui et son papa et sa famille.
I definitely did not only realize my dream, but my father's dream. He's probably celebrating it from above. It makes it so special. I just let all the emotions run out.
Dynasties always come to an end. Now, if we're going to win the Constructors, we need to minimize the mistakes.
The two McLarens going wheel to wheel.
If I expected him to do that, he would never have had the chance. It's fucked.
We fighted with us to be P6.
What's your name?
Ayal.
You finished 6th place in the Constructors' Championship. You're taking home tens of millions of dollars.
Hulkenberg goes off.
You're fucking shitting me.
Ruling against their favor does not merely mean a lost game or a failed campaign. It threatens to dissolve the very myth upon which their entire legacy is constructed. Chapter 1: The Gathering Storm of 1997. To understand the extraordinary intersection of paths that would later define the professional gridiron, one must return to the collegiate landscapes of the Late 1990s. The year 1997 was a singular epoch in college football, defined by a level of intensity and regional pride that seemed to consume the national consciousness. It was a time before the absolute centralization of the sport, a period when local broadcast booths and printed sports pages still held a sacred authority over the narrative. At the heart of this season was a race for the Heisman Trophy, an award that, since 1935, had grown to become the most coveted individual honor in amateur athletics. For decades, the trophy had been viewed as the exclusive domain of offensive stars, specifically quarterbacks and running backs. The bronze figure itself, sculpted with a ball tucked firmly under one arm, seemed to dictate the terms of eligibility. It was an unwritten rule of the sport that only those who regularly handled the ball could claim the mantle of the nation's most outstanding player. Entering the autumn of 1997, the script had already been written by the national media. The protagonist was Peyton Manning, the quarterback of the University of Tennessee Volunteers. Manning was the consummate football legacy, the son of the legendary Ole Miss quarterback Archie Manning. For Peyton, the game was not merely a pursuit, it was a lineage, a craft studied from childhood under the watchful eye of a father who had endured 12 of his 14 professional seasons with his struggling franchise in New Orleans. Peyton Manning possessed an intellectual mastery of the position that was almost unprecedented for a college student. He was a meticulous student of film, a quarterback who could diagnose a defensive coverage before the snap and orchestrate his teammates with the precision of a classical conductor. The previous spring, Manning had stood at a profound crossroads. He had the option to leave school early and enter the National Football League draft, where he was projected to be the absolute first selection by the New York Jets. The temptation of millions of dollars and the immediate status of a franchise savior would have been irresistible to almost anyone else. Yet, in a packed press conference in Knoxville, Manning chose a different path. He announced his intention to remain at the University of Tennessee for his senior season. His decision was greeted with an almost religious adulation by the Tennessee faithful, who camped out for days just to secure tickets for the upcoming campaign. Manning wanted to finish what he started. He wanted to win a Southeastern Conference championship, a national title, and inevitably, the Heisman Trophy that had eluded his father. As the season commenced, Manning was the undisputed frontrunner. Every touchdown pass, every pre-snap adjustment, and every post-game press conference seemed to solidify his status as the heir apparent to the bronze statue. The media spoke of his Heisman campaign not as a competition, but as a coronation. Yet, far to the north, in the crisp air of Ann Arbor, another force was quietly gathering momentum. Charles Woodson, a 20-year-old junior cornerback for the University of Michigan, was redefining what was possible for a defensive player. Woodson, a Heisman Trophy-winning recruit from Fremont, Ohio, possessed an athletic grace that bordered on the supernatural. He was not merely a shutdown Corner who could erase an opponent's best receiver. He was a dynamic three-way. Impact player who demanded to be on the field whenever the game was on the line. The Michigan coaching staff, recognizing the rare jewel they possessed, had slowly integrated Woodson into the offensive game plan. He began to appear at wide receiver, running crisp routes and catching deep passes with effortless ease. He was also a lethal punt returner, capable of turning a routine kick into a game-changing score. Woodson played the game with invisible swagger, a quiet confidence that stood in stark contrast to the structured, corporate precision of Peyton Manning. While Manning represented the traditional ideal of the scholar athlete, Woodson represented the raw, unfiltered excitement of the modern game. He was, as his coaches and teammates observed, 5 years ahead of everyone else on the field. To watch him play was to watch an athlete who seemed to anticipate the movement of the ball before it was ever thrown, a player who navigated the field with a singular, instinctive genius. As the weeks ticked away in the autumn of 1997, these two paths began to converge. The national conversation, once a monologue dedicated to Manning, transformed into a fierce, region-spanning debate. It was a clash of philosophies, the ultimate quarterback versus the ultimate football player. Chapter 2. The Battle for the Ballots. The 1997 season progressed with a series of dramatic demonstrations that began to shake the foundation of Manning's inevitability. The first major crack in the narrative occurred in the humid confines of Gainesville, Florida. The Florida Gators, coached by the clever and outspoken Steve Spurrier, had long been the nemesis of the Tennessee Volunteers. For Manning, the swamp was a place of recurring frustration. He had never beaten Florida, and the national media had quietly decreed that his Heisman candidacy was contingent upon a victory over the Gators. On that warm September afternoon, Manning and the Volunteers fell short once more. Despite putting up respectable statistics, the quarterback could not overcome the aggressive defensive scheme of the Gators. The defeat was a heavy blow, not only to Tennessee's national championship aspirations, but to the carefully constructed narrative of Manning's flawless senior season. Although he remained a dominant force, throwing 5 touchdowns and over 500 yards. In a later game against Kentucky, the shadow of the Florida loss lingered in the minds of some voters. Meanwhile, Charles Woodson was putting together a portfolio of plays that were impossible to ignore. Against Michigan State, he made an interception that defied the laws of physics, leaping high into the air along the sideline, reaching back with one hand, and somehow securing the ball while maintaining his footing within the field of play. It was a moment of pure athletic brilliance, the kind of play that causes television commentators to pause in disbelief. The defining moment of Woodson's campaign, however, came in the regular season finale against Ohio State. The rivalry between Michigan and Ohio State is one of the most intense in all of sports, a game where legends are forged and seasons are redeemed. In the second quarter of a tight contest, Woodson took a punt at his own 34-yard line. He slipped past the first wave of defenders, found a seam along the left sideline, and accelerated down the field. He did not strike the famous Heisman pose in the end zone as his predecessor Desmond Howard had done, but the message was clear. He had returned the punt 76 yards for a touchdown, intercepted a pass in the end zone to thwart an Ohio State drive, and caught a crucial pass to set up another Michigan score. Michigan won the game 20-14, preserving their undefeated regular season and securing a trip to the Rose Bowl. In the aftermath of the victory, Woodson stood before the cameras, his white jersey stained with mud, and declared with a broad smile that he was the best football player in the country. It was not a boast born of arrogance, but rather a simple statement of fact, based on what everyone had just witnessed. The debate now reached a fever pitch. The Heisman electorate, comprised of 870 members of the media and 50 former winners, was deeply divided. Traditionalists argued that the trophy should not be given to a defensive player, noting that a cornerback, no matter how talented, cannot influence the outcome of a game to the same degree as a quarterback who touches the ball on every offensive play. They felt that leaving Manning off the ballot was a betrayal of the award's history, a sentiment that was particularly strong in the South. Conversely, supporters of Woodson argued that the Heisman was intended for the most outstanding player in college football, not merely the most valuable player to a specific offensive system. They pointed out that Woodson's versatility had allowed Michigan to achieve an 11-0 record and opportunity at the national title, while Manning had once again failed to win his most critical game against Florida. On December 13, 1997, the four finalists, Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, Ryan Leaf, and Randy Moss, gathered in the elegant, wood-paneled ballroom of the Downtown Athletic Club in New York. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Manning, dressed in a conservative dark suit, appeared calm, though the weight of expectation was visible. Woodson, beside him, possessed the easy confidence of a young man who felt he had already proven his point on the field. When the envelope was opened, the announcement sent a shockwave through the college football world. The winner of the 63rd Heisman Memorial Trophy was Charles Woodson. He had become the first, and, to this day, the only primarily defensive player to win the award. The reaction was immediate and highly polarized. In Knoxville and across the South, there was a sense of profound outrage. Angry fans flooded the phone lines of the Downtown Athletic Club, accusing the media of regional bias and arguing that Manning had been robbed of his rightful legacy. T-shirts appeared with the slogan, "Keep your stupid trophy," reflecting the deep resentment of a fan base that felt their hero had been unjustly denied. Manning himself handled the disappointment with characteristic grace, congratulating Woodson and turning his focus to the upcoming Orange Bowl against Nebraska. Yet, the vote remained a turning point. It proved that even the most Carefully constructed narratives can be overturned by the sheer, undeniable force of individual brilliance on the field. Chapter 3: The Snows of Foxborough. For years after the historic Heisman race of 1997, the paths of Charles Woodson and Tom Brady would cross once more, this time on a professional stage that seemed designed by the gods of winter themselves. The date was January 19, 2002. The setting was Foxborough Stadium, a concrete coliseum in Massachusetts that was scheduled to be demolished immediately after the game. The contest was the American Football Conference divisional playoff game between the Oakland Raiders and the New England Patriots. The weather was not merely cold, it was a full-scale blizzard, with heavy, wet snow falling in thick sheets that blanketed the turf and obscured the yard lines. It was a wonderland, romantic to watch on television but treacherous to play in. For the Patriots, the season had been an improbable journey. Their starting quarterback, the highly paid and accomplished Drew Bledsoe, had suffered a severe internal injury early in the year. In his place, the team had turned to a young, unheralded backup named Tom Brady. Brady had been selected in the 6th round of the 2000 draft, the 199th player chosen. He was a skinny, slow-footed quarterback from Michigan who had spent much of his collegiate career splitting time and fighting for playing time. There was no pedigree, no media coronation for Brady. He had entered the league with a massive chip on both shoulders, a young man who had to fight for every scrap of recognition. Under the guidance of head coach Bill Belichick, Brady had shown a remarkable ability to manage the game, make accurate passes, and lead the team to victories. He did not possess the elite arm strength of Peyton Manning or the athletic dynamism of Ryan Leaf, but he had a quiet, unflappable composure that seemed to grow stronger as the pressure increased. The Oakland Raiders, on the other hand, were a veteran, battle-tested squad. Led by head coach John Gruden, they possessed a formidable defense that featured Charles Woodson, now an established All-Pro cornerback. Woodson had lost none of the anticipation and physical edge that had defined his Michigan days. He was the spearhead of a Raiders defense that was aggressive, physical, and highly confident. As the game unfolded in the driving snow, the elements dictated a slow, physical struggle. The footing was precarious, making it difficult for receivers to cut and defenders to react. For a young quarterback like Brady, however, the snow offered a strange kind of advantage. The defense could not disguise their coverages as easily because everyone had to focus on simply keeping their feet. The game seemed to slow down, playing into Brady's sharp, analytical mind. Despite the difficult conditions, the Raiders held a 13-10 lead late. In the fourth quarter, the Patriots had managed to stay close, largely due to Brady's efficient short passing game, but time was running out. With under 2 minutes remaining, the Patriots faced a 2nd down and 3 from the Oakland 47-yard line. The stadium was a cauldron of swirling snow and screaming fans. Brady stood in the shotgun formation, his hands warmed only by a small blue pouch around his waist. He surveyed the Raiders' defense, looking for an opening in the whiteout conditions. He did not know that his old college teammate, Charles Woodson, was about to initiate a play that would be discussed, debated, and dissected for decades to come. Chapter 4. The Anatomy of a Tuck. The play was a simple blitz. Charles Woodson, lined up on the edge of the defensive formation, saw his opportunity. He knew Brady's tendencies from their 3 years together in practice at Michigan. He knew that Brady, when pressured, would look to protect the ball or make a quick throw. Woodson did not go in simply to make the tackle. He went in like a shark smelling blood, aiming directly for the football. At the snap, Woodson accelerated past the offensive line, his feet finding purchase in the snow. Brady, looking to his right, did not see the cornerback approaching from his blind side. Just as Brady began to bring the ball forward in a passing motion, he realized his receiver was covered. He attempted to halt the throw and pull the ball back toward his body, trying to secure it with both hands. Before he could complete the motion, Woodson arrived. With a powerful, sweeping motion of his arm, Woodson struck the ball, dislodging it from Brady's grasp. The football tumbled onto the snow-covered turf, a dark brown oblong spinning in the white expanse. A scramble ensued, and Raiders linebacker Greg Biekert fell on the ball. On the Oakland sideline, the celebration was immediate. The players jumped, their breath visible in the freezing air, believing they had just secured a trip to the American Football Conference Championship game. On the field, Tom Brady stood with his hands on his hips, his face the very picture of defeat. In his mind, the game was over. He had fumbled, and his improbable season had come to a bitter end in the New England snow. But then, referee Walt Coleman received a message from the replay booth. The play was under review. At the time, very few people, including the players on the field, were aware of a highly obscure rule known as the tuck rule. NFL Rule 3, Section 22. Article 2 stated that when an offensive player is holding the ball to pass it forward, any intentional forward movement of his arm starts a forward pass. Crucially, the rule added that if the player loses possession of the ball while attempting to tuck it back toward his body, it is ruled an incomplete pass, not a fumble. Inside the replay booth, Coleman peered at the monitor, trying to discern the exact sequence of events through the swirling snowflakes. The television angles showed Brady starting his arm forward, then stopping the motion and bringing the ball back toward his left hand. The ball was dislodged before he had successfully tucked it against his chest. After several agonizing minutes, Coleman stepped back onto the field, turned on his microphone, and announced the decision. The ruling on the field was overturned. It was an incomplete pass. New England retained possession of the ball. The Oakland sideline erupted in fury. John Gruden paced the snow, his face turning a deep shade of red as he yelled at the officials. Woodson, and his teammates could not believe what they were hearing. To them, and to millions of viewers watching at home, it was a clear-cut fumble, a sack strip by a brilliant defensive player that had been erased by a technicality. Given a second chance, Brady did not hesitate. He completed a series of short passes to advance the Patriots into field goal range. Then, with the clock ticking down, kicker Adam Vinatieri stepped onto the field for a 45-yard attempt. The snow was several inches deep, and the wind was swirling. Vinatieri later described it as the most difficult kick of his entire life. Yet when the ball was snapped, he struck it cleanly. The ball sailed through the driving blizzard, barely clearing the crossbar to tie the game at 13 and send it into overtime. In the extra period, the Patriots won the coin toss, marched down the field, and Vinatieri secured the victory with another field goal. The Patriots were going to the championship game and eventually to their first Super Bowl title. The Tuck Rule game, as it came to be known, was more than just a controversial athletic contest. It was the determinant of a dynasty. Had the play been ruled a fumble, the Raiders would have won, and the trajectory of professional football would have been completely different. Brady might have returned to the bench in 2002, with Drew Bledsoe reclaiming his starting position. The legendary career of the six-time Super Bowl winner might have been delayed or perhaps even averted entirely. Instead, the butterfly effect of a single, highly questionable ruling propelled Brady and the Patriots into a period of unprecedented dominance. Chapter 5: The Italian Paradigm of the Winner. While the drama of rules and narrative was playing out on the frozen fields of North America, a completely different yet structurally identical phenomenon was unfolding in the warm, televised landscape of Southern Europe. In Italy, a wealthy media tycoon named Silvio Berlusconi was demonstrating that the principles of spectacle, narrative construction, and the absolute demand to win could be used to conquer not just a sport, but an entire nation. To understand Berlusconi's rise, one must understand the state of Italy in the late 20th century. For over 40 years, the country's political system had been dominated by the Christian Democrats, a permanent occupation of power that had bred a deep, systemic corruption and a sense of profound stagnation. By the early 1990s, a massive judicial investigation known as Clean Hands had exposed a vast network of bribes, kickbacks, and political favors. The old political parties, once thought to be indestructible, dissolved almost overnight. The Italian public was left with a feeling of deep disillusionment and a yearning for something completely new. Enter Silvio Berlusconi. Berlusconi was not a politician. He was an entrepreneur, a builder of modern suburbs, and, most importantly, the creator of Italy's first private television empire. In a country where television had been a serious educational state monopoly, Berlusconi had introduced a colorful, hedonistic world of American soap operas, game shows featuring scantily clad women, and endless commercial advertising. He had transformed the cultural landscape of Italy, shifting the national focus from duty and civic responsibility to pleasure, consumption, and the pursuit of individual success. But Berlusconi understood that television alone was not enough to capture the heart of the Italian public. He needed a vehicle that could generate raw, unfiltered emotion on a weekly basis. In 1986, he found that vehicle in the historic football club Associazione Calcio Milan. At the time, Milan was a sleeping giant in ruins. The club had been involved in a match-fixing scandal, relegated to the second division, and was on the verge of bankruptcy. It was a proud institution that had hit rock bottom, mirroring the moral and economic anxieties of the nation itself. Berlusconi purchased the club and immediately treated it not merely as an athletic team, but as a high-end television production. His arrival was marked by a theatricality that was completely unprecedented in Italian soccer. On a summer day in 1986, he had the team fly into the training ground in helicopters, accompanied by the dramatic music of Richard Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries. The players, dressed in elegant designer suits, descended from the sky like modern gods. It was a brilliant piece of stagecraft. Berlusconi was sending a clear message to the fans, the media, and the business community. The era of gray, industrial survival was over. The era of luxury, beauty, and absolute triumph had begun. To realize his vision, Berlusconi made two critical decisions. First, he hired a completely unknown coach named Arrigo Sacchi. Sacchi had never played professional soccer and had only coached in the lower divisions. The Italian media ridiculed the appointment, arguing that a man who had never been a great player could not possibly manage a team of stars. Sacchi famously responded that a jockey does not need to have been a horse first. Second, Berlusconi poured vast sums of money into the club, acquiring some of the finest players in the world, including the Dutch trio of Ruud Gullit, Marco van Basten, and Frank Rijkaard. Under Sacchi's guidance, Milan developed a revolutionary style of play. They abandoned the traditional Italian defensive system, known as catenaccio, which was based on caution, waiting for the opponent's mistake, and securing a narrow victory. Instead, Sacchi introduced a high-tempo, pressing game that demanded absolute physical fitness, precise spatial organization, and a commitment to constant attack. It was a footballing revolution. Milan did not merely win. They destroyed their opponents with a style that was beautiful, aggressive, and highly spectacular. In 1989, they defeated Real Madrid 5-0 in the semi-final of the European Cup, and then went on to crush Steaua Bucharest 4-0 in the final before 90,000 adoring fans in Barcelona. Berlusconi was always at the front line of these victories. He took personal credit for the team's tactical success, presenting himself as the master strategist who had taught the players how to win. He built a powerful, modern myth, the myth of the self-made man, the successful entrepreneur who could take a failing institution, and, through sheer willpower, modern management, and a commitment to beauty, transform it into the greatest team in the world. Chapter 6: The Condemned Victory. By 1994, the Italian political system had collapsed entirely, and Berlusconi saw his moment. He decided to enter the political arena, launching a new political party called Forza Italia, a name taken directly from the chants of the soccer stadium, meaning Go Italy. His political campaign was a masterpiece of marketing executed by his television advertising executives. He did not present a traditional political program. Instead, he sold himself. He ran on the narrative of his own success, arguing that a man who had built a media empire and created the greatest soccer team in the world could easily run a country. He used the language of football to describe his political journey, speaking of entering the field and forming a winning team to defeat the communists. The strategy was immensely successful. The Italian voters, still reeling from the collapse of the old order, were captivated by the image of this winning entrepreneur who promised to bring the style, wealth, and success of AC Milan to the entire nation. Berlusconi was elected prime minister, demonstrating that in the modern era, the boundaries between sport, entertainment, and political power had dissolved completely. Yet, this absolute commitment to winning carried a profound psychological weight. Berlusconi famously remarked that he was condemned to win. For a man whose entire authority, both political and commercial, was constructed upon the myth of infallible success, any defeat was an existential threat. He could never admit to weakness, never acknowledge a mistake, and never accept a fair loss. This psychological need to maintain the narrative of victory at all costs led to an increasingly dangerous detachment from reality. When his policies failed, or when he was accused of corruption, tax fraud, or personal misconduct, he did not engage with the substance of the charges. Instead, he painted himself as the victim of a conspiracy, arguing that his enemies, whether they were left-wing magistrates, rival businessmen, or biased journalists, were simply trying to prevent him from winning for the good of the country. The parallel to the world of sports is striking. In the arena of athletic competition, as in the arena of modern politics, the obsession with victory can lead to a state of mind where the rules themselves are seen as mere obstacles to be navigated or redefined. The winner is not the one who adheres most strictly to the regulations, but the one who can successfully impose their interpretation of the rules upon the rest of the world. Epilogue: The legacy of the rules. In 2013, at an annual meeting of NFL owners in Phoenix, Arizona, the league's owners voted to officially eliminate the tuck rule from the rule book. The decision was almost unanimous, a quiet admission that the rule had been a highly questionable piece of legislation that ran counter to the natural instincts of the game. For Charles Woodson, the repeal was a small, late victory, though it could never alter the history that had already been written. He would go to his grave believing that Tom Brady had fumbled that night in the New England snow and that a grand injustice had been committed. Yet, in their quiet moments of reflection, both Woodson and Brady understood that they were bound together by that single, snowy second. It was the moment that defined their careers, the ultimate demonstration of how a single ruling can alter the course of human destiny. In Italy, the long, dramatic era of Silvio Berlusconi eventually came to an end, marked by financial crises, legal battles, and political decline. Yet the cultural transformation he initiated remains. He proved that in a world dominated by screens and spectacles, the narrative of success is the most powerful currency of all. Ultimately, these stories remind us that we are all subject to the unexpected rulings of fate. We construct elaborate systems of rules, whether they are the articles of a football rulebook, the criteria for a prestigious trophy, or the laws of a democratic republic, in an attempt to bring order and fairness to a chaotic world. Yet, in the final analysis, it is the human heart, with its capacity for brilliant opportunism, quiet resilience, and the relentless pursuit of victory that determines how those rules are played. We are all in our own ways, navigating the driving snow, waiting for the call from upstairs, and hoping that when the final decision is made, we will find ourselves on the winning side of the line. The architecture of fate and the butterfly effect. There is a subtle, almost invisible thread that runs through the history of human endeavors, connecting moments of quiet decision to the thunderous turning points of destiny. We often comfort ourselves with the belief that greatness is a steady, predictable march, the inevitable result of talent and hard work. Yet, if we look closely at the turning points of history, we find that the grandest destinies often hang on the most fragile of hinges. A single decision, a sudden shift in the weather, the split-second interpretation of an obscure rule, or the trajectory of a ball through a thick winter fog can reshape the lives of men, the fortunes of franchises, and even the political landscape of nations. This is the story of those moments where one thing changed everything. It is a chronicle of three distinct yet deeply intertwined arenas where sport, culture, and human ambition collided. We begin on the frozen, wind-swept turf of Foxborough Stadium, where two former college teammates met in a blinding snowstorm to contest a play that would echo for decades. We then travel back to the late 1990s, where a group of extraordinary young men engaged in a legendary race for the most coveted individual trophy in amateur athletics, a campaign that divided regions and redefined the expectations of a sport. Finally, we cross the ocean to Italy, where a wealthy, charismatic media tycoon realized that the passions of the soccer field could be harnessed to conquer the political heights of a nation, demonstrating how the beautiful game could become the ultimate vehicle for political power. Through these narratives, we observe the quiet operation of the butterfly effect. We see how the vulnerable human beings at the center of these dramas, athletes, coaches, tycoons, and referees, navigated the immense pressure of their circumstances and how their lives were forever altered by the mysterious interplay of luck, skill, and fate. The blizzard at Foxborough and the obscurity of the rules. In the middle of January in the year 2002, relentless winter storm descended upon New England. The air was frigid, and a thick blanket of heavy white snow began to cover the ground, blurring the white yard lines of Foxborough Stadium. It was a setting that seemed almost romantic, like a winter wonderland illuminated by the towering stadium lights, but for the athletes on the field, it was a cold, demanding crucible. No National Football League playoff game had ever been played this late in the winter in this particular stadium. The owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft, had specifically requested this home field advantage, wanting his team to play in the dark, freezing cold of Foxborough with a little snow thrown in to challenge their opponents. The opponents on this fateful Saturday night were the Oakland Raiders, a franchise that carried a rich, turbulent history of rivalry with the Patriots. To understand the tension of this evening, one must look back 25 years. Prior to the year 1976, when these two franchises met in the same round of the playoffs. In that game, with only 1 minute remaining on a critical third down and 17 yards to go, a nose tackle named Sugar Bear Hamilton was called for a highly questionable roughing the passer penalty by referee Ben Drath. Instead of forcing a desperate fourth down, the penalty gave the Raiders a first down on the 13-yard line, leading to a game-winning touchdown sneak by quarterback Ken Stabler. The controversy burned so deeply in the hearts of New England fans that the referee was not allowed to officiate another Patriots game for 9 years. Now, a quarter of a century later, history was preparing to rhyme in the very same stadium. This game also served as a reunion for two former teammates from the University of Michigan. On one side was Charles Woodson, the spectacular cornerback for the Oakland Raiders, a Heisman Trophy winner who possessed a rare, instinctual understanding of the game. On the other side was Tom Brady, the young quarterback of the New England Patriots, who had been drafted with the humble 199th pick in the 6th round of the draft. Woodson had known Brady since their college days in Ann Arbor, having watched him navigate the trials of competing for playing time with a quiet, resilient determination. Woodson knew what Brady was capable of, having seen his accuracy and decision-making up close in practice for 3 years. Brady, in turn, viewed Woodson as the very epitome of success, an elite athlete who seemed to be 5 years ahead of everyone else on the field. Brady had only received his opportunity to start earlier that season when the established star quarterback, Drew Bledsoe, suffered a serious injury that caused internal bleeding. The young, inexperienced Brady had stepped into the starting role, showing a remarkable ability to manage games, make smart decisions, and lead his team to victories. But as the snow continued to fall on this playoff night, the young quarterback found himself in a grueling, low-scoring battle against a tough, physical Oakland team. By the second half, the Raiders held a 10-point lead, and the slippery Conditions made running the football almost impossible. Brady realized that the only way to move the ball was to throw it. For a quarterback, the snow offered a strange, quiet advantage. The defenders could not rush with their usual speed because they could not find secure footing in the snow, and they could not employ complex disguises because they feared slipping. Brady's mind could operate at its usual rapid pace, while everyone else on the field was forced to move in slow motion. He led a methodical drive, completing 9 out of 9 passes for 60 yards, and finished the sequence by running the ball into the end zone himself for a touchdown. It was a rare rushing touchdown for the young quarterback, who celebrated with uncharacteristic wildness, looking, as his friend Woodson would later tease, like a clumsy baby deer on the ice. With just over 2 minutes remaining in the game, the Raiders held a narrow 13-10 lead. The Patriots desperately needed to stop the Oakland offense to get the ball back. On a critical 3rd down and 1 yard to go near midfield, the Raiders attempted a short yardage run, but a blocking mistake by the right guard blew up the play, leaving them short of the 1st down. Rather than risking a run on 4th down, Oakland head coach John Gruden chose to send out his punt team, a conservative decision that frustrated his players, who believed they were strong enough to secure the game right then and there. The Patriots received the punt, and Brady took the field for one final desperate drive. With 1 minute and 59 seconds remaining, facing a 2nd down and 3 yards to go from the Oakland 47-yard line, the game reached its dramatic climax. On the sideline, the New England offensive coordinator, Charlie Weiss, had called a play known as a 3-by-1, positioning 3 receivers on one side of the field and a single receiver on the backside. Standing near the New England sideline, Charles Woodson had quietly positioned himself behind Brady, listening to the play call. Woodson knew the Patriots wanted to throw to the single receiver on the backside, where cornerback Eric Allen was prepared to play off and look for an interception. As the play began, Brady dropped back into the pocket. He looked to his right, but his target was covered. As he hesitated, searching for an outlet, Woodson came on a corner blitz, sprinting through the swirling snow from Brady's blind side. Brady began to initiate a forward passing motion, but realizing the defender was upon him, he attempted to pull the ball back, tucking it against his body to protect it. Before he could secure the football, Woodson collided with him, striking the ball and sending it spinning onto the snow-covered turf. To everyone in the stadium, it appeared to be a classic sack and a fumble. The Raiders celebrated, diving onto the loose ball and recovering it. The game, it seemed, was over, and the Raiders were headed to the American Football Conference Championship game in Pittsburgh. Brady walked off the field with his head bowed, the weight of defeat heavy on his shoulders, believing he had lost the game for his team. But high above the field, the replay official was looking closely at the television monitors. Under the rules of the National Football League at the time, there existed a highly obscure guideline known as the tuck rule. The Referee of the game, Walt Coleman, was summoned to the sideline monitor to review the play. The rule, formally designated as Rule 3, Section 22, Article 2, stated that when an offensive player is holding the ball to pass it forward, any intentional forward movement of his arm starts a forward pass. Crucially, the rule added that even if the player loses possession of the ball as he is attempting to tuck it back toward his body, if the ball comes loose before he gets it completely tucked against his side, the play must be ruled an incomplete pass rather than a fumble. For several agonizing minutes, the stadium fell silent as Coleman studied the grain of the replay through the falling snow. To the Raiders, the idea that this was anything other than a fumble was absurd. Brady's forward motion had clearly stopped, and he was trying to hold on to the ball when Woodson struck it. But according to the strict, literal interpretation of the rulebook, because Brady had initiated a forward motion and had not yet successfully secured the ball back against his body when the contact occurred, the play met the technical definition of an incomplete pass. Coleman returned to the field, turned on his microphone, and announced the reversal. The stadium erupted in a mixture of disbelief and joy. The Patriots had been given a second chance, a moment of sudden, unexpected life in the freezing cold. Yet, the reversal of the call did not win the game. It merely meant the game was not over. The Patriots still trailed by 3 points with very little time remaining. They had to execute under immense pressure. Brady calmed his team, made several precise throws, and positioned the Patriots for a 45-yard field goal attempt by kicker Adam Vinatieri. The conditions for a kick of that distance were nearly impossible. There were several inches of snow on the ground, and the wind was swirling. Vinatieri later recalled that as he stepped onto the field, he knew this would be the most difficult kick of his life. If he missed, the season was over. But as the ball was snapped and held, Vinatieri struck it beautifully. The ball sailed through the driving snow, clearing the crossbar to tie the game and send it into overtime. It was a kick that many observers would later call the greatest in the history of the sport. In overtime, the Patriots won the coin toss, which was of paramount importance. Under the sudden death rules of the era, they put together a brilliant, methodical drive, executing their plays with absolute precision while the demoralized Raiders struggled to regain their composure. Vinatieri capped the drive with a shorter, 23-yard field goal to win the game, sending New England to the championship game and initiating a journey that would lead to their first Super Bowl victory against the St. Louis Rams. In the decades that followed, the tuck rule became the subject of endless debate. 20 years later, Brady and Woodson would sit together, looking at the footage of that snowy night, still engaging in a friendly, spirited debate over what actually transpired. Woodson remained steadfast in his belief that it was a fumble, pointing out that Brady's intent was clearly to protect the ball rather than throw it. Brady, with a wry smile, admitted that his intent was indeed to hold on to the ball, but He gently reminded his old friend that he did not write the rules. The butterfly effect of that single play was staggering. Had the call on the field stood as a fumble, the Raiders would have won the game and perhaps gone on to win the Super Bowl. Woodson believed that with a championship he would have remained a Raider for his entire career, rather than eventually leaving in free agency. For Brady, a loss in that game might have prompted head coach Bill Belichick to return the starting quarterback job to the healthy Drew Bledsoe for the 2002 season. Brady might have remained a backup. His legendary career stalled before it ever truly began. Instead, the obscure rule preserved the victory, launching a dynasty that would claim 6 Super Bowl championships and define the National Football League for 2 decades. It was a stark reminder of how a few milliseconds of a play, interpreted through the cold lens of a rulebook, can alter the trajectory of lives and history forever. The Great Heisman Race of 1997. To understand the nature of competitive passion and how it can divide a nation along regional lines, one must look back to the autumn of 1997, a year that produced one of the most memorable and closely contested races for the Heisman Trophy in the history of college football. The Heisman, first awarded in 1935, had grown to become the most coveted individual honor in amateur athletics, transforming young men into instant celebrities and millionaires. But the 1997 race was unique, featuring a field of extraordinary talent that included future professional Hall of Famers, each presenting a distinct philosophy of how the game should be played. At the center of this drama was Peyton Manning, the quarterback for the University of Tennessee. Manning was the very picture of the consummate quarterback, highly intelligent, possesses exceptional arm strength, a quick release, and an unparalleled work ethic. He was the son of Archie Manning, a legendary quarterback at the University of Mississippi who had endured a difficult professional career with the struggling New Orleans Saints. Archie's career had been a lesson in the fragility of football success, and some observers believed he was quiet but determined to ensure his son Peyton entered the professional ranks under the best possible circumstances. In the spring of 1997, Peyton Manning faced a monumental decision. He was widely expected to leave college early and enter the National Football League draft, where the New York Jets, under the legendary coach Bill Parcells, held the first overall pick and were desperate to select him. The financial temptation was immense, with millions of dollars waiting for him. Yet, in a move that stunned the sports world, Manning held a packed press conference in Knoxville to announce that he was staying at Tennessee for his senior season. Manning explained that his decision was rooted in a desire to fully experience his final year of college, to savor the simple joys of being a student athlete, and to finish what he had started by winning a conference championship and perhaps a national title. It was a decision that was praised by many as a noble embrace of the amateur ideal, though some professional commentators wondered if he was making a significant financial and career mistake by passing up the opportunity to play for Parcells. Entering the 1997 season, Manning was the undisputed frontrunner for the Heisman Trophy, a figure of immense hype who seemed to have the award secured before a single game had been played. But as the season unfolded, several formidable challengers emerged from different corners of the country, each capturing the imagination of fans and the media. In the hills of West Virginia, at Marshall University, a young wide receiver named Randy Moss was putting together a season of breathtaking athletic dominance. Moss was a rare physical specimen, standing 6 feet 5 inches tall and weighing 215 pounds with a speed and leaping ability that made him virtually uncoverable. Yet his journey to Marshall had been marked by personal struggles and legal troubles that had cost him opportunities at Notre Dame and Florida State University. Having lost his chance to play for those powerhouse programs, Moss had returned to his home state, determined to make the most of his final opportunity. Moss played with a fierce, redemptive intensity, scoring 25 touchdowns and accumulating over 1,600 yards of offense. While some voters hesitated to support him due to his past mistakes, his sheer athletic brilliance on the field made it impossible to ignore him. Meanwhile, in the Pacific Northwest, quarterback Ryan Leaf was leading the Washington State University Cougars on a historic run toward their first Rose Bowl appearance in 7 decades. Leaf was a physical force, standing 6 feet 6 inches tall and weighing 235 pounds, with a powerful arm and a fierce, swaggering confidence that polarized fans. He was a player who played with gasoline on a fire, exploding with emotion on the field and displaying a competitive arrogance that some found offensive, but others found incredibly compelling. Under Leaf's leadership, the Cougars became one of the most exciting teams in the country, and he emerged as a legitimate contender for the Heisman. But the most unique challenger of all was emerging in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Charles Woodson, a 20-year-old junior cornerback, was establishing himself as the most versatile and dominant player in the country. Woodson was a natural athlete who played with a quiet, supreme confidence, while his primary position was cornerback, where his exceptional coverage skills shut down opposing wide receivers. He had approached his head coach, Lloyd Carr, with a request to contribute on offense as well. Carr recognized Woodson's rare gifts and began deploying him as a wide receiver and a punt returner. Woodson became a three-way threat, making impact plays in every phase of the game. His coaches and teammates openly championed him as the best overall player in college football, arguing that the Heisman should go to the best player, regardless of what position they played. This was a direct challenge to the history of the Heisman Trophy. Since its inception, the award had been almost exclusively reserved for quarterbacks and running backs, players who accumulated large offensive statistics that were easily measured. No primarily defensive player had ever won the award. Some commentators argued that a defensive cornerback simply could not influence the outcome of a game as much as a quarterback who touched the ball on every play. They argued that Woodson's candidacy was merely a novelty and that the trophy should go to Manning, who was performing at an elite level for a highly ranked Tennessee team. The race began to tighten as the season reached its critical autumn months.
4.
Manning, the defining challenge of his career, had always been the University of Florida. He had never beaten the Gators, and many believed he could not win the Heisman unless he broke that streak. In September, the Volunteers traveled to the Swamp in Gainesville for a highly anticipated matchup. It was a brutal, physical game, and despite Manning's best efforts, the Florida defense harassed him all day, securing a victory and preserving Manning's winless record against their rivals. The loss did not eliminate Manning from the Heisman race. He continued to put up spectacular numbers and lead Tennessee to victories, but it opened the door for his competitors. Woodson, meanwhile, was putting together a series of legendary performances that captured the national spotlight in a heated rivalry game against Michigan State. Woodson made a spectacular, leaping, one-handed interception near the sideline that looked more like the play of an elite basketball player than a football defender. The image of that interception was broadcast across the country, signaling that Woodson was closing the gap on Manning. The climax of Woodson's campaign came in November during the legendary matchup between Michigan and Ohio State, with a trip to the Rose Bowl and a potential national championship on the line. Woodson dominated the game. He intercepted a pass in the end zone to stop an Ohio State drive, caught a 37-yard pass to set up a Michigan touchdown, and returned a punt 78 yards for a touchdown, executing a brilliant, weaving run through the Ohio State coverage
team.
After crossing the goal line, Woodson struck the iconic Heisman pose, a bold statement that electrified the stadium and cemented his status as a national phenomenon. As the voting deadline approached, a fierce regional debate erupted.
In the
South, particularly in Knoxville, fans and media members felt that Manning was being unfairly targeted by national commentators, specifically those at the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network, who seemed to be driving the momentum toward Woodson. Tensions were so high that when network production crews arrived in Knoxville, some fans threw rocks at their vehicles. The people of Tennessee believed that Manning's decision to return for his senior year, his outstanding career achievements, and his SEC championship victory deserved to be honored, and that giving the award to a defensive player would be a historic injustice. The Heisman electorate, consisting of 870 media members and 50 former winners, was divided. On the night of December 13th, the four finalists, Manning, Woodson, Leaf, and Moss, gathered in the grand ballroom of the Downtown Athletic Club in New York City. When the envelope was opened, the president of the club announced that Charles Woodson was the winner of the 63rd Heisman Trophy. He had secured the historic victory by a narrow margin, becoming the first and only primarily defensive player to win the award. Manning finished as the runner-up, followed by Leaf in third and Moss in fourth. The reaction in Tennessee was one of immediate anger and bitterness. Many fans felt that the award had been diminished, arguing that Manning had been left off. Several ballots by voters who wanted to ensure Woodson's victory. They believed Manning's career had been slighted in favor of the flashy, late-season momentum of a defensive player. Yet, for the broader college football world, Woodson's victory was seen as a historic and healthy moment for the sport. It brought credibility back to an award that had become predictable, proving that a player's overall impact on the field, even on the defensive side of the ball, could be recognized and celebrated. The 1997 Heisman class would go down as one of the greatest in the history of the sport. The subsequent National Football League draft in 1998 reflected the extraordinary talent of that group, with Manning being selected first overall by the Indianapolis Colts, Leaf going second to the San Diego Chargers, Woodson going fourth to the Oakland Raiders, and Moss being selected by the Minnesota Vikings. While Leaf's career would unfortunately struggle, Manning, Woodson, and Moss would go on to have legendary professional careers, redefining their respective positions and validating the incredible talent of that historic 1997 race. The condemned winner and the Sochai Revolution. To understand how the passions of the sporting world can be utilized to achieve the highest levels of political power, one must travel across the Atlantic to Italy during the late 20th century. It was a nation of deep beauty and immense cultural wealth, but also one that was weary of an entrenched, stagnant political system. For nearly 50 years, the Christian Democratic Party had held a permanent grip on power, a monopoly that had bred a culture of laziness, corruption, and systemic inefficiency. The public felt a deep sense of cynicism, a belief that nothing would ever change in a system that seemed completely closed to new ideas. This political exhaustion was mirrored in the world of Italian football, a sport that was not merely a game in Italy, but a central pillar of national identity and daily life. In the early 1980s, the sport was rocked by the Totonero match-fixing scandal, which resulted in the arrests of several prominent players and the forced relegation of the legendary club AC Milan to the lower division of Serie B. For a generation of young fans who viewed football as a world of dreams and heroes, the scandal was a devastating moral blow. Italian football had hit rock bottom, marked by defensive, cynical play on the pitch and corruption off of it. But in the northern city of Milan, a cultural and economic transformation was underway. Known historically as a grey, industrial town, Milan was reinventing itself as the vibrant fashion and design capital of the Western world. It was a city of pioneers, driven by an entrepreneurial culture that valued style, dynamic change, and hard work. At the forefront of this new Milan was Silvio Berlusconi, a wealthy, ambitious real estate developer. Berlusconi had achieved significant success by building Milano Due, a modern, family-friendly suburb with advanced amenities. But his true genius lay in his understanding of the power of media, recognizing a loophole in the state television monopoly, which allowed local stations to operate but prohibited national broadcasting. Berlusconi created a private national network by sending recorded video cassettes of programs to local stations across the country, by synchronizing their broadcast times within a few seconds. He created a de facto national network that offered colorful, entertaining programming that was highly attractive to advertisers. Berlusconi became an entrepreneur of emotions, introducing a style of television that focused on pleasure, consumerism, and entertainment, a stark contrast to the serious, educational programming of the state broadcaster. He made vast amounts of money and built a media empire that gave him direct access to the hearts and minds of the Italian public. In 1986, Berlusconi decided to apply his resources and his vision to the world of sports by purchasing AC Milan, a historic club that was on the brink of bankruptcy. Initially, he had hesitated, as a fortune teller had warned him that buying the club would bring him bad luck. But his competitive drive and his recognition of the unique social power of football overcame his superstition. Berlusconi did not merely want to save AC Milan, he wanted to revolutionize it. He wanted to build a club in the image of his entrepreneurial success, a dynamic, stylish, winning organization that would capture the imagination of the world. His arrival was marked by a theatricality that Italian sports had never seen before. In July of 1986, Berlusconi had the entire team and staff transported to a training ground by a fleet of helicopters to the dramatic strains of Richard Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries. The players emerged from the helicopters dressed in elegant, custom-made suits, signaling the arrival of a new, glamorous era. Berlusconi met with the team and gave them a clear, ambitious mission to become the most dominant and spectacular club in the world. To achieve this, Berlusconi made a highly controversial and risky decision in 1987 by hiring a new coach named Arrigo Sacchi. Sacchi had never coached in the top division of Serie A and had never played professional football, having spent much of his early life working in his family's shoe business. To many in the conservative Italian football establishment, Sacchi was a nobody, and his appointment was viewed as a foolish gamble by an arrogant tycoon. But Sacchi possessed a revolutionary vision of the game. For decades, Italian football had been defined by a defensive philosophy known as catenaccio, which focused on defending deep, avoiding risks, and relying on individual counterattacks. It was a style of play that Sacchi believed reflected the cynical, self-preserving aspects of Italian culture, a desire to survive rather than to create. Sacchi wanted to introduce a collective, offensive style of play based on pressing, zone defense, and the compression of space. He believed that the team should act as a single, coordinated organism, with every player contributing to both defense and attack. Under his system, pressing was not simply running after the ball. It was a scientific coordination of movement designed to starve the opponent of time and space. To implement this demanding system, Berlusconi provided Sacchai with some of the most talented players in the world. He acquired the brilliant Dutch trio of Ruud Gullit, Marco van Basten, and Frank Rijkaard, combining their exceptional skills with a strong core of Italian defenders like Franco Baresi and Paolo Maldini. The transition was not easy. The players found Sacchai's intense training sessions and mental demands exhausting, and the team suffered some early losses, including a disappointing elimination from the European Cup competition. The media began to criticize the new coach, predicting that he would not survive the winter. But Berlusconi stood firmly behind his manager, visiting the locker room to tell the players that Sacchai would remain and that it was they who would have to adapt. The turning point came as the players began to fully comprehend and execute Sacchai's system. AC Milan began to play a style of football that had never been seen in Italy: fast, aggressive, beautiful, and dominant. They systematically dismantled their opponents, culminating in a historic victory over Diego Maradona's Napoli to secure the Italian championship. Gullit became the symbolic icon of this era, athletic, charismatic, and playing with a joyful, rock and roll energy that captivated the fans. The supporters identified deeply with this winning, modern image of the club. AC Milan's success soon extended to the European stage. In the spring of 1989, they faced Real Madrid in the semi-finals of the European Cup. After securing a hard-fought draw in Madrid, Milan produced a flawless, breathtaking performance in the second leg in San Siro, defeating the Spanish Giants 5-0. In May of 1989, just months before the historic fall of the Berlin Wall, AC Milan traveled to Barcelona to play Steaua Bucharest in the European Cup final. Nearly 90,000 Milan fans made the journey across Europe, creating a sea of red and black flags in the stadium. Milan played a perfect game of collective pressing, destroying the Romanian champion 4-0, with 2 goals each from Gullit and Van Basten. Berlusconi had achieved his vision. He had taken a struggling, bankrupt club and transformed it into the greatest team in the world, celebrated for its style, beauty, and dominance. In doing so, he had built a powerful personal narrative. To the Italian public, Berlusconi was no longer just a wealthy businessman. He was a miracle worker, a leader who could take an old, broken institution and make it a world champion. By the early 1990s, as the traditional Italian political parties collapsed under a massive wave of corruption scandals, Berlusconi realized that the country was looking for a savior. He decided to enter politics, launching a new political movement that he named Forza Italia, a phrase taken directly from the chants of the football stadium. He utilized the language, the organization, and the media power of his football club to campaign for the office of Prime Minister. He sold himself